grown as a pitcher this off season? Clearly, you definitely have. Your coach was naming you the Friday night opening day starter.
There's been a ton of growth. There's been a ton of growth from a bunch of guys on our staff. Personally, for me, of course, there's the physical things. Like Coach was talking about, like want to improve the spin on my fastball, want my slider to be more of a put-away pitch. Want to be more consistent with the changeup and improve the curveball. But above all that, I learned something really cool from Doug Nikhazy, and that's playing baseball. I mean, that's what we're doing out here. Of course, there's a lot that goes into it, but watching him play, he shows up and he would chew his bubble gum and hate the other team and then go pitch against them. So it's also a lot of that. It's a mix of a bunch of things, but we're gonna play baseball this year, and I think I'm gonna be better in a lot of areas.
How much have you learned about just using your fastball over the last couple of years? Obviously, last year you came out pumping 97 week one, and then kind of had to learn how to locate it better. Where are you with that this year, and just kind of what do you want to do with that pitch?
You wouldn't think the fastball is such a complicated pitch, but it is. It's probably the most complicated pitch. We work with Rapsodo and a bunch of analytical, devices, and they help you see, what your fastball does and why it does what it does, and why it's effective against some hitters and why it's not against other hitters. And so, I came in with a 4-seam and a 2-seam fastball like a lot of guys do, and pretty soon after I came here, I switched over to just a 4-seam fastball. And the reason you do that is because you want to generate ride on your fastball, which makes it, harder to hit. You look at a guy like Doug who throws 88, 89, last year he did, and guys look like he was throwing 99. So I've been working on doing the same thing. I would ask for help from Taylor Broadway because, like me, he's a righty. He switched from that, 2-seam grip to a 4-seam, and he obviously saw a lot of improvement with it. So in the fall, I really had two goals. It was to throw my fastball more and make it more effective. And I saw a lot of growth with it because I worked on the spin, generated some more lift on it, and I was able to move it around. My whole life I'd thrown to the knees. And when you're in high school, you hear live low, live long, and it works against high school hitters. But you face really good SEC hitters, and you see that some of those big guys really love to drop the head on that low pitch. So you just got to move it around, and I saw a lot of improvement just working on a few things.
Coming into last year, you didn't have that SEC postseason experience. Having that from last year to this year, does that kind of help you knowing what those situations are going to be when you get into moments like that this year?
100%. Like some of the guys before me said, Coach B and Hayden. Last year was really our first year. 2020 seemed like a fairy tale. We won every game. I did well, but we were playing Xavier and Princeton. Last year, going through the gauntlet of the SEC taught us all a bunch. So to answer your question, definitely. We do have an older team this year and a lot of expectations coming back, and I think the experience last year can only help.
There's obviously a lot of talk about the experience the offense is returning, but have you seen anything from some of the newcomers on the pitching staff on your side of things?
Definitely, 100%. Personally, on my end, I have, and then with everybody else, I have as well. I think one of the issues last year was, we were a bit top-heavy, which seems obvious. We had Gunnar and Doug, who were, monsters to head the staff, but what that did was for some guys like a Brandon Johnson or a Jack Doherty, who are obviously very, very good at what they do, it made them say, man, the rotation set, the weekend rotation set, we're just going to get some innings, whatever. This year, it's been very, very competitive, and I think that's a huge thing. The competitiveness is, increased tenfold, and so we're going to be really, really good through the back end, which we haven't had or which we didn't have last year.
So that competitiveness and depth, what have you seen out of freshmen coming out? What you want to add to on some staff?
Great kid, great pitcher, and he's really mature, for a freshman. He's able to take some of his bad outings just like he takes his good outings. He's got a great mindset for a pitcher. He'll let things slip. Short memory. Physically, looks just like, I can't say it exactly, but it looks a lot like Doug. Has a really good curveball. Fastball plays up. He's going to be really good. He's going to have a good career here.
Have you seen yourself taking on a bigger leadership role in the pitching room this year?
Definitely. It's something I looked forward to for the last couple of years. I got to learn from two of the best in the whole country, Doug and Gunnar. With them, I had somebody whose personality I was a little more like Doug to ask questions, and then somebody that I looked more like in Gunnar to ask questions. So I try to get to know everybody just like the catcher does. You want to build a relationship with these guys, and so I've tried to do that with some of the younger guys and be able to answer all kinds of questions. I've only been through one full season, but I do what I can, and I look forward to coming every day and, you know, being more that leader on the staff instead of the young guy like I was the last couple of years.
You playing shortstop this year? What's with the blonde dye?
Gave it one last go. Didn't work out, but the blonde didn't go away as fast as my dreams. Good to see you guys again. Good to see some faces. It makes the season feel real.